All right, strap in, everyone. We're going deep on a listener-submitted list. The top 10 most brutal animals from the top10s.com. Sounds kind of intense, right?
It's really more than just like a horror show of nature. When we think about brutal with animals, it's tied in with survival, how they make it in a tough world.
Well, the list starts by mentioning sharks, which everyone thinks of with that whole Jaws thing. But it puts orcas right at the top. Killer whales. Are they really that brutal?
See, orcas, they're apex predators. Top of the food chain, nobody messes with them. And it's not just about raw power, they're incredibly smart. There's been studies where they coordinate attacks, use clever hunting strategies even, kind of play with their food before going in for the kill.
That's what creeps me out. The source even says they play with their food viciously. What's the point? They obviously don't need extra practice catching seals.
Well, some scientists think it could be a way of teaching. Like the older orcas show the younger ones how to hunt effectively, passing down that knowledge. It's a harsh lesson, sure, but maybe essential in their world.
So even in something as raw as hunting, there's like a layer of social structure going on, not just, I'm big, you're food.
Exactly. And that ties into this idea that often brutal behavior has a purpose in the ecosystem. For instance, tiger sharks. This one's wild. Before they're even born, they're already in a fight for survival.
Wait, in the womb? What's going on there?
Tiger sharks, they practice something called intrauterine cannibalism. It means the biggest, strongest embryo actually eats its siblings before they're born.
Okay, that's straight out of a horror movie. But I guess it does make sense in a way. Only the strongest survive, right?
Right, it's a brutal but effective strategy. Make sure only the fittest offspring make it. Brutal in nature often comes down to these strategies that have developed over a really long time.
So it's adapting to a tough environment. Starting to see the theme here. It's not about being mean, it's about playing the survival game, whatever it takes.
And sometimes those survival tactics are intense.
Hmm.
Think about polar bears. They're on the list too, known for their strength. They hunt seals, and get this, they punch through the ice to get them. Brutal, but in that Arctic environment, it's how they eat.
Okay, we've got orcas with their planned out hunts, tiger sharks battling in the womb, polar bears breaking through ice, nature's not playing around. What examples on this list really stood out to you?
There were a few that, yeah, they surprised me. Some animals we don't usually think of as brutal, they really flip the script, like the black widow spider. They're famous for a very specific type of brutal behavior, sexual cannibalism.
Wait, so the female eats the male after mating?
Yep, gruesome, right. But in evolutionary terms, it kind of makes sense. The female gets a big nutritional boost by eating the male. Makes her more likely to have healthy babies. It's like a messed up form of motherly love, I guess.
Wow. Romance comes at a price in the spider world.
And the surprises don't stop there. We've also got prairie dogs. Super cute, those little guys. But according to this list, older sisters in the prairie dog colony, they might actually kill their younger sister's babies.
Whoa, hold up. Infanticide. With their own family. That takes brutal to a whole new level. I thought prairie dogs were all about those cute burrows and little chirps they do.
It's a good reminder that even in these social groups that seem peaceful, competition is fierce. Could be that this behavior helps control the population, make sure the strongest families are the ones that have more offspring.
I'm seeing prairie dogs in a totally different light now. This is getting pretty intense. We've got black widows, deadly romance, prairie dogs with family drama. Any other animals where we see this kind of thing happening?
Yeah, you see some patterns here. The list points out lions and hippos too. Males in both those groups, they can get brutal, especially towards offspring that aren't theirs.
Oh, yeah. With lions, I've heard of that. It's all about keeping their bloodline pure.
Right. That's it. Male lions, they'll often kill cubs that aren't theirs. It's about making sure their genes are the ones that get passed on. Pretty rough way to do it, but in the animal world, that's the goal. Keep your genes going.
Ruthless. Like a game of evolutionary chess or something.
And hippos, they seem chill, all herbivore vibes, but they play that game too. Males, super territorial. They'll go to extremes to protect their young, get rid of competition.
So whether it's black widows, prairie dogs, lions, hippos, this drive to protect their genes, it can lead to some dark stuff.
Absolutely. It's like Evolution 101, right?
Yeah.
But it plays out in these fascinating and sometimes disturbing ways. Oh, and before we move on, those other animals, a list kind of groups together.
You mean the honorable mentions? I was looking at those. Rhinos, hyenas, crocodiles, even threw T-Rex in there.
Yeah, like a grab bag of brutal creatures, right? Almost like they're saying, we know these guys are tough, but not quite top 10 material.
I gotta give him props for the T-Rex, though. Come on, strongest bite force of any land animal ever. That's brutal.
Definitely wins the most formidable award. But hyenas? They're up there too? The way they hunt? It's intense. They often start eating their prey before it's dead.
Hmm? Yeah, that's rough. Talk about adding insult to injury.
Survival is often comes before compassion in the wild. You know what surprised me on this list? The bald eagle. Doesn't seem that brutal, does it?
Not really. I mean, they're all majestic, symbol of freedom,
Yeah.
soaring through the air.
That's the image we have. But get this. They decapitate their prey, eat the best parts, then feed the rest to their young.
Decapitation, that's a bit much, even for the animal kingdom.
It's like even the animals we see as noble, they can have a brutal side. Reminds us, this stuff, it's a part of nature. Often it has a purpose.
This whole deep dive, it's been eye-opening. Seeing a list is one thing, but actually getting into the why behind the behavior, it's easy to just judge. But when you see the bigger picture, brutal isn't so simple.
Exactly. It's survival, it's adapting, competition, even parental care in a kind of morbid way. Makes us look at nature differently, right?
It's almost like we're looking at ourselves a bit, isn't it? Humans, we like to think we're above all that. But history tells a different story.
That's an interesting thought. Easy to get caught up in the animal stuff and forget. Humans, we have that capacity too. Maybe that's why this conversation's important. It's not just about animals, it's about us, our place in the world.
So what's the takeaway? Just accept that brutality is part of life. For animals and humans.
It's more nuanced than that. Recognizing it's there doesn't mean saying it's okay. It's about understanding why it happens, seeing that a lot of it comes from that need to survive, to keep going.
It's like peeling back layers of a puzzle, isn't it? We started with this list, but now we're looking at all these bigger forces. Evolution, the environment.
And understanding that is key. It helps us get past just judging and move towards a more, well, compassionate view of nature.
Definitely a lot to think about after this one. Listeners are probably feeling the same way.
I hope so. It's a topic that makes you think, makes you question what you thought you knew.
Well, we've reached the end of part 2 of our dive into the brutal side of animals, but we're not done yet. In part 3, we're going to look at the ethical side of all this. What does it mean for us to interact with these creatures? How do we be responsible?
Should be a good discussion. Looking forward to it.
Back again for the deep dive. We've been talking all about brutal animals, and man, there's been some intense stuff. But before we wrap up, I gotta ask, where do we fit into all this? As humans, I mean.
That's the big question, isn't it? It sparks a lot of debate. I think for us, it comes down to this. We can think about our actions. We can judge them, right? We see an animal doing something, pure instinct, survival mode.
Yeah.
But we also think, is that right?
Yeah, like, we know nature can be rough, but we like to think we're above that a little bit.
In some ways, sure. We've got societies, laws, this whole idea of ethics. It's like we try to separate ourselves from that wild side of nature, but we're part of it too. Our own history. It's not all sunshine and roses, right?
True. It's easy to focus on what the animals are doing and forget humans can be pretty brutal too.
Exactly. And realizing that we can be both compassionate and destructive. I think that's important when we talk about animal behavior.
Yeah.
It's not about blaming, it's about understanding both sides of the coin.
So then, how do we deal with that? How do we balance our human values with, well, all this stuff we've learned, hearing about infanticide, cannibalism? It's hard to just shrug it off.
It definitely makes you think. But I think the first thing is we have to minimize the harm we're causing. We talked about habitat loss, climate change, pollution.
Yeah.
All that stuff puts pressure on animals, makes that survival instinct even stronger.
So we're not just watching all this happen, we're playing a part in it, and we have to own up to that.
Totally. The more we learn about ecosystems, the pressures animals face, the better we can make decisions. About conservation, how we manage habitats, even just our everyday choices.
Makes sense. Instead of just being shocked or fascinated, we can use that knowledge to be better caretakers. Right. For the planet.
That's the goal. Move away from just judging towards understanding and taking responsibility.
Well, this has been quite the deep dive. Started with a list of animals, but we really went all over the place.
Evolution, ecology, even some philosophy in there.
It's amazing, right? One topic, and it just keeps unfolding more and more layers.
That's curiosity for you. Lead you down some interesting paths and hopefully expands how we see the world.
Our listeners definitely have some homework after this one.
I hope so. And if they come away with anything, I hope it's that sense of wonder, respect for the natural world, even the parts that are tough to look at.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this exploration, and a big thanks to all our listeners for sending in this list. Keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and until next time, remember, the journey of discovery never really ends.
Catch you on my next deep dive.